He's almost an illusionist. I think that's where he got the nickname Luka Magic.
Jeanie Buss has always been a fan of Luka Doncic, but after Luka confirmed his breakup with Maria Goltes, things took a dark turn. Maria went forward to reveal some disturbing details about him, and now the Lakers owner has made an announcement no one saw coming. Let's break it down. The announcement and the filing. On March 9, 2026, Maria Goltes, Luka Doncic's partner of 10 years, walked into Los Angeles County Superior Court and filed a petition. The documents requested child support payments from Luka Doncic, along with reimbursement of attorney fees. The petition covered their two daughters, Gabriella, born in late 2023, and Olivia, born in December 2025. It did not request any changes to custody. It contained no allegations of misconduct, abuse, or endangerment of any kind. By its own terms, it was a standard post-separation support matter, calculated under California state guidelines based on parental income and custody time. But the filing became public within hours through standard court docket transparency. By March 10th, major outlets had the story. Sources close to Doncic indicated he had no idea the petition had been filed until it appeared in TMZ's reporting. He responded the same day, issuing a public statement through his representatives to both ESPN and the Associated Press. It was the first time he had confirmed on the record that the engagement was over. "I love my daughters more than anything, and I've been doing everything I can for them to be with me in the US during the season. But that hasn't been possible, so I recently made the tough decision to end my engagement. Everything I do is for my daughter's happiness, and I will always fight to be with them and give them the best life I can. No blame, no counter allegations, no detail about the relationship beyond what was necessary to explain the decision. Just a father saying, plainly, that the distance from his children had become the reason." The filing exposed the split in public terms, but it did not create it. The separation had been building for months before any court document existed. European tabloids had been tracking it for weeks. Goltes had begun removing joint photos from her Instagram in late February and early March 2026, the kind of quiet signal that precedes a public confirmation. The filing just put a date and a courthouse address on what was already happening. What came next was the announcement that reframed everything around it. Just days before the filing became public, Jeanie Buss had sat down with CNBC's Alex Sherman for an interview that aired around February 17th and 18th, 2026. Doncic had just earned the #1 fan vote in the Western Conference for the NBA All-Star Game. Buss was talking about the new financial partnership with co-owner Mark Walter, the stability it provided, and what the Lakers were going to do with that stability.
The partnership will give us the stability to continue to move forward as we build towards a team around Luka Doncic, who is the #1 vote getter in the All-Star game, and we couldn't be more proud that he is a Laker.
That was the announcement. Not a suggestion, not a direction. A public declaration on a national business network that the Los Angeles Lakers were building their entire franchise around one player, by name. She went further. She described what watching Doncic in person was like. The passing, the court vision, the way he reads defenses before anyone else sees what is coming.
Luka's one of those players you need to see in person. The stuff that he does in terms of the passing and how he sees the game, he's almost an illusionist. I think that's where he got the nickname Luka Magic, and certainly we know that comes from Magic Johnson. So, I think Laker fans have a lot to look forward to.
The illusionist. Buss was not throwing out a casual nickname. She was drawing a direct line between Doncic's playmaking and the name already attached to the greatest Laker in franchise history. Luka Magic had already been a fan phrase for years. Buss was putting it in official language, from ownership on camera. The Sporting News ran the headline on February 17th, 2026. Jeanie Buss makes it clear the Lakers are now Luka Doncic's team. No qualifier. No eventually. The team was his. Then, less than 3 weeks later, his ex filed in court, and the person at the center of both stories was Luka Doncic. The owner's announcement and the ex's filing arrived in the same news cycle, one after the other, and together they painted the full picture. A superstar at the peak of his professional life, navigating the most painful part of his personal one. To understand how both happened at the same time, you have to go back to the trade that started everything. The midnight deal that changed the course of two franchises and caught the man at the center of it completely off guard. The trade, the night everything changed. It was just after midnight on February 2nd, 2025. Luka Doncic was in bed in Dallas. He had helped lead the Mavericks to the NBA Finals the season before. He had publicly said more than once that he wanted to be a Maverick for life. He had recently bought a house. He was settled. Then his phone rang. It was Mavericks general manager Nico Harrison. By the time the call ended, Doncic was already a Los Angeles Laker. The trade had been finalized, the papers signed, and ESPN's Shams Charania had broken the story at 12:16 a.m. ET. Doncic found out at the same moment the rest of the world did. The deal was a 3-team trade involving the Utah Jazz as the facilitating third party. The Lakers sent Anthony Davis, Max Christie, and an unprotected 2029 first-round pick to Dallas. The Mavericks sent Doncic, Maxi Kleber, and Markieff F. Morris to Los Angeles. Utah absorbed Jalen Hood-Schifino and received second-round picks from both sides, along with small cash considerations. Anthony Davis waived his trade kicker, an additional financial incentive that would have otherwise complicated the salary math, allowing the Mavericks to drop below the luxury tax threshold while keeping everything cap legal on the Lakers' end. That one move made the whole structure work. The secrecy behind it was total and deliberate. Utah Jazz CEO Danny Ainge reportedly learned that Doncic was the centerpiece just 30 minutes before the news broke publicly. Neither Doncic nor his representatives were told at any point before the deal was complete. League sources later confirmed the Mavericks kept him in the dark intentionally to prevent any last-minute pushback or public statement that could have derailed the talks. Jeanie Buss described the moment on The Rich Eisen Show, speaking about the first conversation she had with Doncic after the trade was done.
You know, I think it still hadn't set in with him, right? You know, because it's very humbling to be traded.
She was direct about what that process looked like from the organization side.
And, you know, he just bought a house and you know, was settling in, and you know, so I think it surprised him.
Not everyone accepted the way Buss framed the reason for the trade. On First Take, Stephen A. Smith pushed back immediately on her earlier public comments about Anthony Davis supposedly being unhappy with his role.
But the bottom line is nobody's buying that. You didn't trade Anthony Davis because he was complaining. You traded Anthony Davis because you got a call that you could have Luka Doncic. That's why you traded. If that hadn't presented itself, she wouldn't have given a damn about his complaints.
Buss did not fully dispute the logic. On another occasion, when pressed, she said it herself in the clearest terms she would use.
Look what we had to give up, though. Do you know how hard that was? We were not looking to trade Anthony Davis. Yeah. Dallas contacted us. It was a deal that both sides wanted to make.
The day after the trade, Doncic flew to Los Angeles. On February 3rd, he held an introductory press conference. He appeared visibly subdued. Head coach J.J. Redick later recalled that during the early road trips, Doncic spent most of his time listening rather than leading, a sharp contrast from the vocal, emotional center he had been in Dallas for 7 seasons. In Dallas, the reaction was immediate and raw. Nico Harrison received death threats in the weeks after the trade, some including racial epithets, prompting increased security at American Airlines Center. Roughly 1,000 fans protested outside the arena before Dallas's first home game after the deal. Multiple fans were ejected for violating the NBA's code of conduct. The basketball world was stunned, but inside the Lakers organization, the process of building something new had already begun, and it would require Doncic to go through something he had never experienced in his NBA career, starting over. Luka's adjustment from grief to commitment. The adjustment did not happen quickly, and the organization did not pretend it would. Jeanie Buss laid it out plainly during a Slovenian radio interview in August 2025, while she and Rob Pelinka were in Europe supporting Doncic and the Slovenian national team at Eurobasket 2025. She was more direct in that interview than in anything she had said publicly before. Nobody knew the trade was going to happen. I knew, but Luka didn't know. I've never had a player come to the Lakers and be as sad as he was, because the trade was a huge surprise to him, so he had to process it. I think now he's embraced the Lakers and he's all about LA. She had overseen many major acquisitions in her time running the Lakers. She pointed to every previous one as a contrast. Players came to Los Angeles wanting to be there. They sought out the franchise. They lobbied for the trade. They arrived energized by the opportunity. Doncic was the first player she could point to who arrived grieving. The acknowledgement of that, spoken plainly without any organizational spin, was notable. The Lakers moved quickly to make the transition as smooth as they could. Buss described the approach on The Rich Eisen Show.
Intake.
We've embraced his family, his management, you know, everything we can do to make his transition smoother is what we're doing.
There were structural reasons the team could help. J.J. Redick had played alongside Doncic during a brief stint with the Mavericks earlier in the season. Dorian Finney-Smith, who had been Doncic's teammate in Dallas, had been acquired by the Lakers just weeks before the trade. Familiar faces in a new locker room, familiar voices in practice. The organization had seeded the environment deliberately. Buss also spoke about the message she gave Doncic when they first met, the things she said directly to him before any basketball conversation.
And, the first thing I said to him was, you're going to write your own chapter in the Laker history book. We're so excited to have you.
There was a moment in that same meeting that added an emotional layer no one could have scripted. Doncic told Buss he wished Kobe Bryant was there.
And, and then he said, he really wished that Kobe was there.
The connection to Kobe ran deeper than anyone outside the organization might have known. Buss had already spoken publicly about what she knew about Kobe's view of Doncic.
And he had brought Gigi to the Lakers game to see Luka play because Luka was Gigi's favorite player. And, it's just the idea that Luka is now a Laker. I know how happy that would make Kobe and Gigi.
On the court, the production was there from the start, 30 or more points in his first 3 Lakers games. But the emotional closure came later. On April 9th, 2025, the Lakers were in Dallas for the first time since the trade. The American Airlines Center crowd gave Doncic a prolonged standing ovation before the game. He teared up during warm-ups. He teared up again after a dominant performance and called the night bittersweet but necessary for closure. That was the moment the Mavericks chapter closed. The professional commitment came in August. On August 2nd, 2025, Doncic signed a 3-year, $165 million maximum extension with the Lakers, including a player option for the 2028-29 season. He did not wait for free agency. He signed early, and he signed for significantly less than he could have made. Had he remained in Dallas, he would have qualified for a 5-year supermax worth over $345 million. The day the extension was announced, Doncic posted on Instagram, no long statement, just photos in purple and gold and 4 words, new chapter, same dream. By December 2025, he posted a year-in-review video titled A Lot Happened. It opened with footage from the trade announcement and closed on Lakers highlights. The arc of the year was in the footage itself. For Dallas, the same months told the opposite story. Anthony Davis was limited to just 9 games due to injury in the remainder of the 2024-25 season. The Mavericks missed the playoffs entirely. By the 2025-26 season, they were in a full youth rebuild, using their draft capital, including the high-profile selection of Cooper Flagg in the 2025 draft, to build from scratch. The adjustment that Buss had described as grief in February had become full ownership of a new identity by December. The extension made it permanent. What happened next in Doncic's personal life, though, showed that settling into a new city professionally and settling into a new family reality were 2 entirely different things. Luka and Anna Maria, a decade, 2 daughters, and a split. Luka Doncic and Anna Maria Goltes did not meet at an industry event or through mutual contacts in the NBA world. They met as teenagers in the tight-knit youth sports and social circles of Slovenia and Croatia, somewhere around 2010 to 2012, during summer basketball camps and family gatherings along the Croatian coast. Doncic was already a rising prospect with Union Olimpija in Ljubljana. Goltes was from Kranj, from a family with ties to Slovenian sports events, and was building what would become a modeling and content creation career. The early meetings were casual, part of the wider Balkan youth network where basketball prospects and models regularly crossed paths at tournaments and summer trips. Nothing was formalized yet. By 2016, both were 17. Doncic had moved to Real Madrid's academy, one of the most competitive youth basketball environments in the world, and the friendship had become a relationship. They began dating officially that year, with Goltes frequently traveling to Madrid to support him through the pressure and isolation of professional basketball in Europe. When Doncic was drafted by the NBA in 2018 and moved to Dallas, she followed. Friends and family from both sides described the relationship through those years as built on mutual support, Doncic crediting her with helping him manage the pressures of stardom, Goltes maintaining a relatively private presence despite her growing social media following. 7 years after they started dating, it became official in a different way. On July 7, 2023, Doncic proposed to Goltes at Lake Bled, one of Slovenia's most recognized landmarks, surrounded by mountains and castle walls above still water. The engagement was announced publicly through joint social media posts and confirmed by both families in Slovenian outlets. The celebration was kept deliberately small, a private party in Ljubljana, with people from their childhood circles. 4 months after the proposal, their first daughter Gabriela was born in Slovenia in late November 2023. Doncic spoke about fatherhood in interviews with a directness that stood out. At one press conference, a reporter pointed out that Doncic had said on TNT he did not change diapers.
I heard you don't change diapers.
Oh, wait, what? You put that course I change.
You said on TNT you don't change diapers.
No, I do.
You do.
Not as much as
Other people.
He was asked whether becoming a father had changed his relationship with the game.
Has being a dad changed your perspective on your job?
the approach is the same, but just like playing is way easier. You know, I said after the game, sometimes you have bad nights, and then you come home and you see that little thing. So this all goes away, you know, and it's just happiness.
Goltis and Gabriela split time between Slovenia and Dallas during the 2023-24 season. The pattern worked. Seasonal travel, extended family support in both places, the rhythm of an NBA schedule accommodating a growing family across two continents. Then came the trade, and the rhythm broke. The family attempted to adjust to Los Angeles after February 2025. By May 2025, Goltis and both daughters returned to Slovenia as their permanent base. The reasons were practical: access to extended family in Kranj and Ljubljana, cultural familiarity for young children, and the difficulty of managing constant international travel against the weight of an 82-game NBA schedule. Doncic flew back to Slovenia during off days and the All-Star break when the calendar allowed, but the NBA kept him in the United States for most of the year. Their second daughter, Olivia, was born in December 2025 in Slovenia. Doncic traveled to be present for the birth. He was there. But what happened in the days that followed at a maternity hospital in Kranj became the point from which the relationship did not recover, and the legal proceedings in two countries began. The moment the family tried to navigate what happened next is where the full story of the split begins, and the legal trail that followed it stretches from a Slovenian courtroom all the way to Los Angeles County Superior Court. The split, the legal proceedings, and Luka on the court. The trigger was not dramatic, it was logistical. Doncic had traveled to Slovenia in early December 2025 to be present for Olivia's birth at Kranj Maternity Hospital, missing Lakers games against Toronto on December 4th and Boston on December 5th. He needed to return to the United States for a game in Philadelphia on December 7th. Before he left, he expressed a desire to bring older daughter Gabriela, then about 2 years old, back to the US with him. Goltis disagreed. The disagreement was over travel logistics for the newborn Olivia and the timing of Gabriela's relocation. Sources described the exchange as heated but non-violent. Doncic left the hospital peacefully without taking Gabriela. Goltis contacted local authorities. Slovenian police responded to Kranj Maternity Hospital, interviewed Goltis, and interviewed Doncic separately at his home in the area. The police report, reviewed by ESPN, stated explicitly that officers did not detect any elements of a criminal offense or misdemeanor. No charges were filed. No arrests were made. The matter was closed. Doncic returned to the United States and rejoined the team. In a press conference after that return, he was asked what those days had been like.
I don't even know how to describe it. It was a lot. I was there for the birth of my daughter, so that means everything to me. But it was definitely a roller coaster.
He was asked how it felt to leave them behind and come back.
I mean, it was good, definitely good. I got to see my daughter again, obviously my newborn. Coming back, it was kind of hard to leave them behind. But it's a job, so got to do it. So hopefully I'll see them soon.
That December visit was the last time Doncic saw either daughter or Goltis in person, as of March 2026. In the months that followed, every attempt to bring the girls to Los Angeles during the NBA season fell through. Geography, schooling for Gabriela, family support networks in Slovenia, and the demands of the full NBA schedule created barriers that did not bend. On February 26, 2026, Doncic filed an interim injunction in Slovenian family court seeking immediate visitation rights and enforceable contact with Gabriela and Olivia. 2 weeks later, Goltis filed her California petition. Legal experts noted that bifurcated proceedings across two countries are standard in international separations. Slovenia, holding jurisdiction over custody and visitation due to the children's residence, California handling support obligations due to Doncic's employment there. People magazine reported that Gabriela had spent only about 3 months in the United States in her entire life, and Olivia had never visited. Those numbers describe the gap between Doncic's professional life and his daughter's daily reality in a way that no legal document could. Through all of it, Doncic was playing the best basketball of his life. Through 53 games of the 2025-26 season, he led the NBA in scoring at 32.5 points per game, was third in assists at 8.5, and averaged 7.9 rebounds. In the 3 games immediately after the court filing became public, he averaged 36.7 points. On the night of March 10th itself, the same day the filing was reported everywhere, he posted 31 points, 11 rebounds, and 11 assists in a win over the Golden State Warriors. He had hit 30 or more points in 11 of his last 13 games during that stretch. Stephen A. Smith reflected on where the Lakers stood at the 1-year mark of the trade, the honest outside view of a team with a transcendent player still finding its full shape around him.
They're not in a good position because they're average. They're not awful and they're not great. They have a great one in him. LeBron is still great. Austin Reeves has elevated his level of play, but his durability has been an issue because he's been injured.
The Lakers sat at 40-25 through mid-March 2026, fourth in the Western Conference, with a clear upward trajectory in defensive efficiency and team assist numbers since the All-Star break. The roster had been constructed entirely around his strengths: DeAndre Ayton as the pick-and-roll finisher, Marcus Smart as the perimeter defender covering his limitations, Austin Reeves as the wing initiator, a surrounding cast of shooters and 3-and-D specialists, giving him room to operate. Rob Pelinka had described the goal publicly in training camp as building the perfect ecosystem for Luka's vision. That ecosystem was functioning. The organization had maintained its long-standing policy of zero public comment on players' personal matters, providing resources, counseling, legal support, travel flexibility, behind the scenes, while keeping all public statements focused entirely on basketball. Their internal approach, described as protect the player, protect the process, had allowed Doncic to maintain elite production without any visible organizational disruption despite the ongoing family proceedings. That is the full picture. A player who did not ask to be traded, who grieved his old franchise, signed a below-market extension, became the named centerpiece of a franchise rebuild, and then watched his decade-long relationship end in parallel court filings across 2 continents, all while leading the NBA in scoring. The owner made the announcement, the ex filed the papers, and Luka Doncic, through all of it, kept playing. Thank you for watching. If you enjoyed watching this video, click on one of the boxes playing on your screen to watch more similar content.